UTS Consulting Club presents the Mini Case Series, a mini crash course to equip case comp newbies with the basics to case competitions. This is the fourth episode of the 5-episode mini case series. You can find our other episodes on our mini case series webpage on the UTS Consulting Club website. Now that your team has come up with a solution, let's look at how we can implement it and demonstrate its feasibility. Implementation and feasibility of your strategy is just as important as the solution itself. Judges want to know you have explored the feasibility and practicality of your solution. In order to demonstrate a strategy's feasibility, it is important you include the financial impact, implementation timeline, and the risks and mitigations of your solution. Let's first start off with looking at the financial impact, also known as the financials of your solution. Imagine you are the client of the case and you are being proposed a strategy to your business. This strategy is great. However, before you jump right into it, you want to know how much it will cost you and are the costs in the solution worth the benefit you will get out of it. This is where financials come in. The financial analysis of your solution supports the team's recommendations by quantifying the impact and cost of your strategy. Common methods of financial analysis include a cost-benefit analysis, net present value analysis, and in addition, other key metrics to demonstrate the impact of your strategy. Financial analysis is not limited to these methods, but these are more common. Other financial projections you can provide are net profit, return on investment, and payback period, just to name a few. Cost-benefit analysis is the most straightforward and logical way to demonstrate the impacts of your strategy. Cost-benefit analysis quantifies the benefits and costs of your solution, providing forecasted revenues and estimated costs of your strategy. Sometimes teams have displayed this through a break-even graph. Feel free to do this if you find this best represents your solution. However, most teams generally focus more on the projected revenue and cost incurred. Compared to other financial analysis methods, cost-benefit analysis is relatively simpler to calculate and is generally easier to grasp. A net present value analysis suggests how much additional value that the strategy will add to the firm. Net present value, also known as NPV, is a classic way of determining the value of an investment's future returns and what it is worth today. Calculating the NPV of your strategy will see you calculating the cash flows of your solution. This includes taking the cash inflows, which are the revenue generated from your strategy, and the cash outflows, so the expenses such as operating costs or any other costs incurred from your strategy, and inputting them into your NPV formula, taking into account a relevant discount rate and discount factor. NPV calculation is a common accounting and finance method and can easily be learnt from online sources such as lynda.com or any other learning sites if you seek further clarification. You could use an NPV when doing the financials for longer-term projects or if they require extensive capital expenditure. There are more ways to measure impact than financial metrics. Other key metrics are another way of measuring the impact of your solution. Other key metrics usually focus on the user. Some examples include the number of users or customers acquired by your strategy, the hours gained or saved, for example, how many hours saved by consumers, or number of transactions gained, for example, the number of transactions made on the app. These are just a few examples. You would use other key metrics to measure your impact when the case focuses on the impact on people or identifies particular non-financial impacts. Financials can be the more difficult aspect of cracking a case, as more than likely the strategy you are coming up with is a completely new idea, proving determining the revenue and costing difficult. As such, here are some general tips to guide you in doing your financials. Number 1. Include all initial and ongoing costs. It is important to remember that costing goes beyond the initial and direct costs of implementing your solution. Remember to consider the ongoing and maintenance costs to be incurred during the period of your strategy. This could include an ongoing service fee or rent, to name a few examples. 2. Conduct wide research on competitors and industry. If tasked on the project of costing the implementation of a high-speed rail system in Sydney CBD, It is highly unlikely a university student would know how to cost the rollout of this system, how much it would cost, and when they would be occurred. To help gauge an understanding of where to begin your projections, you are going to have to base your calculations on the financials of competitors that have similar processes, structures, or projects to your strategy. Look at what they did, how much it cost them, and how often these costs were incurred, and apply the same principle to your projections. This may mean you will have to scrounge around the internet for statistics and figures. 3. Make logical and justifiable assumptions. If you are trying to determine the impact of your solution in terms of new customers acquired, how would you calculate that? More often than not, you will have to make a few key assumptions to get to your final number. When making these assumptions, it is important you are able to justify how you came up with this assumption. Try to have this backed up by research. This is because judges can ask you how you came up with this. In doing your financial projections, it is imperative to be able to justify the source of your statistics, figures, and assumptions. Judges aren't expecting you to have the most accurate revenue or NPV projection, but as long as you are able to back it up with research and logic-driven assumptions, you will be in a much better position to justify your financials to the judges. Now you have quantified the financial impact of your strategy, it is important you demonstrate how your strategy will be implemented on an operational level. This will help the judges determine the feasibility of its implementation. When creating your implementation timeline, be sure to set a time frame, then break it down into key stages, and base the duration of your steps from past processes. This may mean doing a bit of research into how long these processes have historically taken. This is an example of an implementation timeline. This timeline takes place over a 4-month time period. However, do note, timelines can go longer than 6 months. The time period you determine is based on whether it specifies in the case deliverable or is the time period you think is feasible for your solution to be implemented. As can be seen in the timeline, it's broken into 3 key stages: app development, partnership establishment, and pilot testing and review. The relevant arrows and their position signify when each step would take place and for how long. Judges look out for timelines that account for any potential external factors that may influence the implementation and its timeline. This could include business hibernation due to COVID or an online rollout of the product to adapt to social distancing measures. Additionally, judges appreciate timelines that account for evaluations and refinements. This accounts for an opportunity for improvement for the strategy. Last but not least, risk and mitigation. No doubt, any strategy that you recommend will have its risks. It's your job to identify these risks and determine the best way to reduce their impact and likelihood. When presenting your risks and mitigations, it is important you first identify the risks, second, indicate the likelihood and impact, and third, recommend a mitigation strategy, that is, a way to reduce the severity and chance of it happening. Naturally, you will be able to identify the potential flaws and risks of your strategy. However, how you can identify potential risks include looking at processes, involve stakeholders, potential regulations, or any financial risk. Risk and mitigation is a relatively straightforward concept, yet it can be communicated through a variety of dynamic and visual diagrams. On our left, we have the McKinsey risk matrix. The risk matrix incorporates a vertical and horizontal axis. On the vertical axis, we have impact, and on the horizontal axis, we have the likelihood. With each of your risks, you would correspondingly plot where each risk sits in regard to the impact and likelihood. In addition to the McKinsey risk matrix, it is important you also provide the mitigation for each risk. This could be put on the side. On the right-hand side, we have an example of Harvey balls. The Harvey balls represent the level of risk to the proportion that is coloured in the circle. In using the Harvey balls, the risk and its mitigation method is included next to it. Both methods are great visual representations of the risks of your solution. To recap Episode 4, Implementing Your Solution, remember to demonstrate the financial impact of your strategy using either a cost-benefit analysis, net present value analysis, or any other key metrics. These are just some common ways to quantify your solution's impact and demonstrate its feasibility. In addition, the implementation timeline is a great way of showing the judges you have given thought into its operational feasibility and implementation. Remember to set an appropriate timeframe, break it down into core stages, and base your timeline off past processes. Last but not least, when conducting your risk and mitigation, you must remember to identify your risks, indicate the likelihood and severity, and recommend the mitigation method. This concludes Episode 4, Implementing Your Solution. Thanks for listening and keep listening for Episode 5, Presenting Your Solution.